It's an honor and privilege for me to be here. I'd like to talk is entitled Zephyrus. Zephyrus is the Greek god of west wind, known from bringing gentle breeze. And in India, which I don't think anybody addresses here, people are not even aware of them. So when we look at publications, so we all publish, we've all been like cited and all that. But one small point that I'd like to mention here is the fact that we never acknowledge our peers in India. Now the problem with that is, when you don't acknowledge your peers in India, the biggest issue which comes up is that your journals keep on going down in impact factor, and all the international journals start going up in impact factor. And because of that, the first art person they start rejecting is you, who has actually enhanced their impact factor. So the first point that I'd like to mention is whenever you must make it compulsory for each one of you who has PhD students to make it compulsory to cite articles from India. The second important thing relates to, never publish before you patent the product. So many times what you do is, in an eagerness to publish, you forget that there is a patenting potential in that product. And the patent is not simply a patent like a product patent, it's also a process patent which you can do. But if you if you publish something, then you cannot patent it. So please remember that that is very, very important thing that needs to be done. The second important thing is the art of subtle foreshadowing. What is this? I'll just quote this from Khalil Gibran. So he says, it means that you kind of lead up to a plot, and that plot suddenly changes in character. So there's a mystery and then it changes in character. So Khalil Gibran said, one day you will ask me, which is more important, my life or yours? I will say mine, and you will walk away not knowing that you are my life. So it's leading up to a conclusion and then you suddenly change the entire thing. That really gets, as an editor I can tell you, that really gets people, what is this person trying to say? The third very important point which I would like every institution in the country to do is to set up an intellectual property cell and an incubation cell. This is a very specialized job, and most of us think that we can do patenting, we can do translating, we can do business development, everything together. This is not correct. There are specialized people who will focus on different things. The other important thing is, we have this very wonderful document of the National New Education Policy. Now the problem with that is, it says that if you're a lawyer, it doesn't matter, you can still be a neurosurgeon. If you are a neurosurgeon, you can still be an administrator. So this national policy has to be inculcated in the entire curriculum, and no matter where you've done your undergraduate, you have to actually make sure that you do your post-graduation there. And the other important thing is this concept of adjunct professors. So we only think that people from institutions can be adjunct professors, but why not somebody from the industry? And in medicine, I can tell you that people in the private organizations are very accomplished people, and we can't take them as adjunct professors. So this is one policy that needs to be changed. The other important thing is we have to make immersion compulsory. For an IIT, doesn't matter. If you are doing your PhD, MTech, BTech, you have to go for maybe 2 months to an industry and actually sit there, get bored, no problem. Just get exposure. That's one important point. There's a lot of emphasis on translation research, but I'd like to tell you something about translation research. It's fine, but this will only lead to incremental changes in what you're doing. The real changes come when you're also doing basic research. So, you cannot just say the entire country will be only focused on translation research. Basic research also needs a lot of emphasis. Otherwise, you will make some incremental changes, but those disruptive changes will not come. Your Nobel Prize will not come. This is one important aspect of it. And of course, I've often seen that being digital savvy is something that we completely neglect. And looking at large data is something that we completely neglect. And even basic things like making a scientific presentation how to write a thesis, how to write a project. Nobody teaches it. And we suddenly expect everybody to just be well versed with it. So these are some changes that we need to do. Another very important thing which we are completely dependent on our technicians. We should know our equipment. We should have a special session on only knowing your equipment. Why don't you know everything about your microscope? Why don't you know everything about your scanning electron microscope? You should know everything so that you're not dependent on your other people to do it. Then I come to some educational reforms. This is data which has been generated from all the residents of medicine who actually undertook a national poll. And they said that when we enter into a residency system, nobody tells us what is going on. So we just enter, and from the first day we are expected to just join the department and do everything. There has to be a foundation training and entry, where you should know about the focus areas of the department, what the faculty says, what people say, and what are the basic procedures that you have to learn. So 1 month you have to actually devote to actually making them accomplish with the entire thing. The second very important point is that everybody said that we don't want a long lecture. Nothing more than 20 minutes. We cannot concentrate. And we want all these lectures to be participative. That means we should be doing bedside teaching, we should have mentorship, we should have academic dissections, group discussions, evidence-based learning, clinical pathological correlation, electronic teaching with diagrams, short focus teaching less than 20 minutes with electronics resource material. And this is something we solely negate, go on and on and on. This is not correct now. Another thing is very surprising. They said we want periodic evaluations. I was surprised because I thought maybe they're not interested in examinations. They said no. Every 3 months, 4 months, we want periodic evaluations of ourselves. And this is something that was completely strange to me. So this is a very interesting thing. And in England, when I was working there is a centralized record of in-training assessment. What they want is every 6 months, they want to reach back to a central committee which gives them a feedback on their own training. Suppose if I want to do skull-base surgery and I'm getting a lot of exposure to it, but suddenly I want to do epilepsy surgery. Therefore, I go to the committee myself and say, please do a beta, send it to the central agency, and they will recommend that for the next 6 months, I should be posted in the area that I really want to focus upon. Then another very important thing which everybody said is that it should be mandatory for simulation and virtual reality to come into our training program. We don't want these blackboard training programs. And this is something that we can easily do, and nobody is focused on it. All our mannequins are what 1 crore we are getting from China. I think this is absolutely a criminal offense. Then aftermath of training, nobody bothers about what's happening to your students. I mean, placement is a very important aspect. Some IITs do it, but most of us don't. And then alumni input into training is a very important aspect that nobody talks about. And reassessment of skills every 5 years. How many of us are willing to undergo reassessment of our skills? As a surgeon, I'm tested every day, but I should also be tested on my academic knowledge every 5 years. The third are entrepreneurship reforms. And here, one important thing about scientists and engineers are, there are no timelines. It's like the Einstein's law of time space. Okay, there are no time. But everything is based on timelines, and we have to deliver things in timelines. The second important thing is, I've seen people after people, big scientists, only focusing on high-value, deep tech products, which cannot be really made fast. But the problem is, if you're only focusing on deep tech products, it will take a long time for those products to actually come into the market. And it will take 10 years, 15 years, and you're never sure whether it is actually going to be translated. But however, if you make a combination of low-tech, high-tech, and deep-tech products, it really helps because the industry knows that you have a good track record. You know what you're doing, and therefore you will get more people to come in. And once you become friends, then it's much better for you to work on it. So I would definitely tell in entrepreneurship that this is a very important thing. These simple products sometimes become really good. Chitra blood bag. After the bag was made, it was just a bag to collect blood. 300 ml of blood. But then how do you get cited? After it was translated to the company, There are 55 patents after the translation was done before it was commercialized. And now 15 million blood bags are sold every month in Asia. So that is the value of something which has to be done. Then another very important thing is, how do you do your entrepreneurship collaboration? One would be purely intellectual. You don't need in incubation center, you can just go in purely intellectual. They can just, just tell you, guide you in some specific areas. It could be complete incubation, which means that you come into the incubation center, they give you everything from funding to education to handhold you. Or it could be purely on specific areas that you can focus on. This could be could be actually done. Another very important point that I strongly object to is, you just ask one person with a small product to actually just make a company and say, oh, he's made a company, he's now a CEO of a company, he has registered the company and is making a product. I don't think that is correct, because when you actually are making a product, if there is a prototype creation, there is a product development, there is team hiring, working capital, legal and consultation services, raw materials, license and certification, marketing and sales, and office space. So many things are required which are not really science and innovation. And you're not training that person to do any of these things. I strongly suggest that there has to be a complete program, even for entrepreneurship, which has to be introduced in the country, which takes it so that they learn everything about the legal aspect, the science aspect, the business aspect, and develop teams which actually take it forward. Then I come to policy reforms. Now, in biomedical technology products, I've often heard speakers say, why aren't doctors collaborating with engineers and scientists? So I'd like to give you a few points which can really help in all these things. Making a central website portal for real-time exhibiting of government funding opportunities for all institutions. This should become a mandatory thing. Department of Science and Technology, SIR, all of them should combine together to get central portal for funding opportunities which everybody can see and take forwards. The second is central portal for exhibiting expression of interest for devices made by different scientific institutions. I go committee after committee, they're making exactly the same thing. And even the guides don't know that this is being also done by this person and also done by this person and this person. When you have this portal, you know, okay, this is what I've done, this is how it is different from somebody else, and these are the iterations which are required in my product to make it special. This should be another one. The other important thing is, in space, the end user dictates how the technology has to be transferred. But a doctor is not allowed to make a Section 8 company, and he's the end user. And therefore, you don't even know what he actually wants as a scientist or an engineer. The doctors and ICMR scientists should also be allowed to make Section 8 companies that will. Another thing is, people don't realize that longevity of a product is dependent not only on the product and its innovativeness, it is dependent on its quality. And unless you have testing services which are specific for each product, this will be useless. So within a short time, this will be rejected and the institution will also be rejected. So this is something that testing services have to be done. And at regular intervals, you have to have a policy of information of policy changes of the government of India. Because people don't even know what the rules are and how they are changing over time. Every day there is a bulletin coming which is actually, nobody knows what is going on. And another thing is, medical device parks are being made, but they are becoming warehouses. So you have to have institutions in those medical parks. If you don't have institutions, you don't actually get science there. Then having a website for angel investors. How do you get funding opportunities at various levels? At the prototype level, at the testing level, at the translation level, at the commercialization level. Each one of them costs a lot of money, and you need to have information about these things. To have unique and multi-centric human trials, no doctor is willing to actually test those devices on their patients unless you make them aware of it, and most of the doctors are not aware of these things. And then, of course, one important thing is we have so many national awards, but the only national award which should come are devices which have been translated and commercialized, not on prototype development, not in translation readiness level 1 to 4. This is absolutely no importance. Once somebody has translated and commercialized the device, then you actually consider him for an award. This is something. So I'd like to just one slide I have on the devices which we have translated this year. So there are many centers of excellence which have come in, but I'd like to just tell you about. So we did a human heart transplant of an 11-year-old girl, a 44-year-old person's heart was transplanted. The child is doing very well after 1 year. And so this year we have been granted 25 patents and it's a small institute and a lot of things. And these are the commercialized products. So we have bioinfo 3D printing. So if you resect the liver and then you put this bio ink which contains all growth factors, then it really leads to, you can actually regenerate the entire liver. So there is no need for a transplantation of the liver. And this is now commercialized. Another is tuberculosis spot diagnostic kit. The third is calcium sulfate and biocellular beads, which are drug-eluting for osteomyelitis. And 3D software for MRI. These are products which are already. And of course, just a small thing, we have translated almost 8 products, but the most sophisticated ones are a deep brain stimulator for Parkinson's disease, where if somebody has tremors, then you can put it in the hypothalamus, and this will give continuous signals to actually cause stimulation. So, and another very important product is fibrin glue, so that it's a hemostatic agent, so as soon as you put that fibrin glue, the bleeding in the brain stops. And these are high-risk in vivo products that we have done, and so 7 have been translated this year. So, to conclude, there are 4 types of policy decisions which actually we need to adopt. One of them is on an individual basis, one is on an educational basis, third is on an entrepreneurship basis, and the fourth is on a national policy basis. And we all have to say to ourselves, I will be a willing beginner every single morning. Thank you very much for your attention.